Mind Tech Podcast, episode 16 for July 4th, 2013. Paranoid Android. Mind Tech Podcast, episode 16, coming at ya. I'm Gareth Davies in Los Angeles, California. Once again, I'm joined by Joe Ressington in London. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Gareth. How's it going?
It's going okay. It's going okay. How's things over there in sunny London?
Yeah, it is reasonably sunny. It's quite warm. Can't complain. It's going to be really, really hot this weekend. So yes.
Don't talk to me about really hot, dude.
Well, it's actually good to be hot here.
It is a nightmare over here. Actually, yesterday afternoon it cooled down a little bit, but it's brutally hot, and it's very unusual for this time of year. Usually we don't get crazy hot temperatures till like August or September, but we're getting it in June.
Well, it's July now.
Oh yeah, that's right, July now. Yeah, man, where'd the time go? Flies by.
All right.
Now, last week you mentioned that you were going to get some new tech, an Asus laptop.
Yeah, VivoBook. 11.6 touchscreen laptop.
Did it arrive, and what happened?
It arrived, and I've had nothing but nightmares with it since. Hardware-wise, it is a beautiful, beautiful piece of kit. It's even more beautiful than my 15-inch Asus laptop. It's beautiful stainless steel body, and it looks very much like a MacBook Air.
Right.
They sort of shamelessly stole the look, in my opinion. But hey, whatever. It's and it's really nice piece of hardware. And it's just I've had software issues with it, basically. Which
it comes with Windows 8, as you said. It's touchscreen. So when you get it and you turn it on, if you're into Windows 8, you're in hog heaven. You're good to go from the minute you turn that thing on. But if you want to try anything else, any other alternative operating system, what happens?
It's a headache.
Nightmare.
Oh, it's a headache. You have to go into the EFI, the BIOS, and change settings. And it's. I thought it would be straightforward. Stick it into legacy boot mode, away you go. But to try and set up a dual boot with Windows 8 turned out to be a nightmare. In the end, I just got rid of Windows 8, and then I had. I've had issues with the driver in Linux, and I think I've got it sorted now, hopefully.
Was it the issue was mainly the dual boot? Or like if you just said, you know what, I want no Windows whatsoever, just formatted the drive, installed your particular flavor of Linux, you would have been cool? Was it just the dual boot that was causing the headaches?
Yeah, mostly. If you just completely delete the partition table, well, you have to go into the BIOS, set it to legacy mode, delete the whole hard drive or put in a new hard drive effectively, then you can install Linux, no problem, whatever you want.
And it'll work fine. The only issues ensue when you want to do a dual boot with Windows 8.
Yeah, pretty much.
What about this? What about doing that, formatting the drive, installing Linux, then putting VirtualBox on it, and then Windows 8?
Could do, but I'd do... To be honest, the only reason I would want Windows around is for those little times when Linux isn't cutting it, like for printing or stuff like that, where adding, if you're having problems with the printer, then trying to do print from a virtual machine is not going to solve your problems, pretty much.
Right.
You need it really to be on proper bare metal, as they say.
Right.
So I'm thinking I might use the Windows 7 license from the laptop that I'm currently using to talk to you.
Try and get that installed on there.
But it's got no optical drive, so I need to do that by USB.
Right. Well, you finally got a modern computer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I've had a computer sitting next to me here, my Asus EPC with SSD drive, no optical drive.
Nice.
I've had that for years, but it's a bit slow and shit.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, hopefully there'll be enough to talk about with this new machine and my Windows 8 woes, and I might have some more Windows 8.1 updates next week. So hopefully we can sort of compile all of that into a proper feature where we can discuss in depth what
it would be very interesting, because I've been looking at PC laptops, like brand modern ones. Well, not the ThinkPad thing I have now. ThinkPad is old, so it doesn't even come with EFI. It comes with just the standard BIOS, and Linux is a no-brainer to install. But a lot, if not all, of brand new PCs come with EFI, which is predisposed for a Windows operating system. Now, I think that I read somewhere that BSD and Linux are rapidly trying to put together a new boot system which will be compatible with EFI, but there's some kind of licensing debacle going on with Microsoft. In other words, I think Linus Torvalds came out and said that he wasn't going to do it because he could pay a licensing fee to Microsoft to get the code to put it into the Linux kernel so that it could boot natively from EFI. But that's like dealing with the devil. There's got to be another way around it.
Yeah. It's all about the key from Microsoft in order to make it boot and stuff. But yeah, if you are looking to buy something modern and run Linux on it, and you despise Windows more than me.
Oh, there's no way. There's no way whatsoever I'm running any kind of Windows.
Not even like me. You wouldn't even be wanting to dual boot or anything. No. Well, you're not going to have any problems then, because you to get Windows 8 certified, it has to be able to turn off secure boot. So you shouldn't have any problems if you're willing to just completely format the entire drive.
No, absolutely.
More than format, delete the partition table.
Absolutely. First thing I would do when I got the machine would be to wipe the drive completely.
Yeah. Oh, well, in that case, you're going to have no problems, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
Provided you've got the correct hardware support.
Well, that's the issue. I was looking at the Lenovo Y500, which is like a mid-level gaming laptop, and and it looks beautiful. It's a beautiful design, 1080p screen, 15-inch screen, 1080p. Really i7 processor, really really nice machine. And I was like, wow, I like the look of that. That's a beautiful machine. But looking online, everywhere I look, it's like anyone who's bought it and tried to install Linux, nightmare.
All right. Well, yeah, that's the thing you've got to do, really. If it's try and buy something that's popular and well supported, and have a good look. Ideally, if you can go into a shop like I went into Curry's when I bought one for my mum, and I just took a USB drive in there, booted into Ubuntu, and checked it all out. Is the sound working? Are the drivers all right? Is the Wi-Fi all right? And then,
Were they cool with you doing that? Did anyone come over and say, "Excuse me, sir, what are you doing"?
Not really. One fellow was quite fascinated as to what I was doing, but apart from that, no. What I really wanted was the administrator password for Windows, because I wanted to, because I wasn't 100% sure that my mum would be running Linux on it. I wanted to make sure that that full screen flash video would be smooth.
Yeah.
But it didn't have Flash installed on it, and I couldn't install Flash in Windows. So I tried to reset the Windows password, but that didn't work. And stuff.
On the plus, I mean, Flash is slowly but surely going away.
Hopefully,
it'll be gone probably within the next 5 years. It'll be a tiny percentage of stuff that'll require Flash. It's all going away because it's garbage and it's riddled with viruses and shit. It slows your system down. So the sooner that technology is gone, the better for everyone, including Linux and Windows.
Does that mean I have to take the Flash intro off my website?
Oh my God, those are the worst. That was the
and some people still do that. It's unbelievable that still exists.
It's terrible.
In this day and age.
That's like fingernails on a chalkboard, dude. When you pull up a website and it's all pop pop singing and dancing, and you immediately leave the page. Immediately.
Of course.
Oh, nightmare. And I hate it with, I don't know whether they still do it, but I know they used to when a movie would come out and it would say, go to this movie's page. You go to the movie page and it would be loading Flash. And you think, that's it, I'm done. Next, I'm out of there.
Yeah.
No one's going to sit and watch that nonsense.
Well, that's one thing that we've got Apple to thank for, is their hatred of Flash.
Yeah, the death of Flash.
Yeah, so no matter how much you hate Apple, if you do, I know you love them, but if you hate them like me, then the one thing you've got to thank them for is the death of Flash. So.
You hate Apple? Why would you hate Apple?
Because they're evil.
No, they're not evil.
They're evil masquerading as not evil, and that's the worst kind. It's like in Usual Suspects. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Yeah, it's a good.
And that's Apple for you.
No, it's not. Apple is they're just this company, They're just like, just doing stuff. I really don't. It baffles me. People who are like, I hate Apple. I hate them. I'm like, well, and then shut the fuck up and don't buy their shit. There you go. Problem solved.
Well, yeah, but it's if someone's going to say that they love,
I hate them, like
then you've got to be some balance to that.
It's so weird, though. Why would you hate them?
Oh,
it's like if you don't like it, don't buy it. What's the problem? I don't get it.
Well, the thing is that I don't like iPhones. Their products,
so don't buy an iPhone. There you go.
Yeah, but you see, it's not that I hate iPhones or I hate Mac OS or I hate Macs. I actually quite like their hardware and some of their software is all right.
But it's just, it is amazing. What are you talking about? Well, it's true. They are very, very controlling. They have a vision on how they think things should work, and they do it that way. And if you boot into Mac OS and you're expecting something to work the way you think it should work and it doesn't, then you need to either change and use it the way they tell you to use it or go elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's what I've done. I've gone elsewhere.
Right.
But we need to stop beating this Mac with this Apple thing.
But no, I would. Well, before we move on, I should say that they are very, very controlling. They have no question there, no argument from me. They absolutely are very, very controlling. I don't think they're evil, but they are very, very controlling. This is the way we want things to work, and you either go along with it or you don't. But bitching and moaning and say that you hate them, that's fucking retarded, dude. I mean, if you don't like them, don't buy their stuff. There you go. Next. Finished.
They, like most or all companies, they're all about making profit.
Exactly.
And that's why they're just evil capitalist company.
Yeah, they want to make tons of cash. And the last time I checked, they were very successful at that.
Well, very. There's almost no one better at it than them. So
because they make great shit.
Well, they make pretty good stuff and then charge the earth for it.
That's true too. They are way overpriced. Very, very expensive, no question. But you get what you pay for.
Well, to some extent you do. To some extent you do. Speaking of free things and getting what you pay for, should we do the news then?
Okay. Mind Tech Podcast. Here is the news. Oh, the first story. What a sad, sad story this is. Google Reader is dead. What's up with that, man? We've been given, a 2-month notice that the beginning of July, Google was going to pull the plug on its beloved Google Reader. For those very few of you out there who do not know what Google Reader is, and I can't believe I'm even about to say this, but I will anyway. Google provided a service which was like an RSS aggregator. In other words, you would subscribe to many, many RSS feeds in Google Reader, and then you could go ahead and go through your news. But there were many, many applications, some great applications, newsreaders, which relied on Google Reader. Now, back in the day with newsreaders, you'd have your own newsreader application, and you yourself would individually subscribe to the RSS feeds that you were into in the newsreader. But with Google Reader, you'd subscribe in Google Reader. Then in your newsreader application, you just basically log in to Google Reader, and everything is right there. It's uniformed, and it worked really, really well, like crazy good. And they killed it.
The question is, why did they kill it? Well, it was obviously making no money for them.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is why they kill everything. Why they killed Google Wave.
But you're right. There was no profit in it. Or I mean, I'm sure it was making some money, but not that much. But
it was probably costing them a shitload in servers and stuff.
Yeah, it was just a great service, and I truly miss it already. I use on my Mac, I use an application called Reader, Reeder, and it's a beautiful, wonderful newsreader application. But it used Google Reader as its RSS aggregator. And now that that's gone, they haven't released an update yet, so I can use another service. Not that there's another service that's any good. And I've tried a bunch of them in the last few days, jumping around. I tried, the Dig Newsreader and a bunch of different ones, and they're all shit.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I thought, well, I don't really care. I don't really use it, so whatever. And then a couple of days ago, Google Listen stopped working. Which is Google Listen has been abandoned by Google a long time ago, but it still worked perfectly well for me. And it was my podcast app on my phone. And it's what I've been using since I first got an Android phone, because it was just Google's podcasting app. And it's been working, well, not fine, but it's a little bit shit, but whatever. It was doing the job for me, and then it just suddenly stopped working. I was like, what's going on? And then it dawned on me, obviously it was using Google Reader, and so now it's dead. So now I've got no podcast reader. I've got an XML file with all of my
so you backed
podcast
up. Okay, so you backed it up.
Well, yeah, I managed to get it through Google Takeout or something. So now I'm looking for something that's free, because people said, Beyond Pod, but then the free version looks to be a bit shit. You can only refresh one feed at a time.
Right.
Which is no good.
Well,
I need something that is the same as Google Listen and free, and will allow me to import my whole list of one.
Free is the way I look at it is like free is good, but if it's a great piece of software, and by paying whatever to make it from great to fucking awesome, I'd gladly pay for it.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just a matter of principle that I won't pay for software, pretty much.
But if it's
unless it's bundled with hardware like Pro Tools.
No, I mean, if it's a great piece of software, I'd gladly pay for it. I mean, I buy software all the time. You got to remember, though, dude, is like when software is free, you're the product. When you're paying for it, then you're legitimately paying for it. You know, you're off the hook as far as them selling your shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Except for free as in freedom software. You're not necessarily the product there.
Okay. I see what you mean, but I mean, if something is a quality piece of software, and it's, as long as it's not ridiculously priced, if it's a decent price and it's a great piece of software, I'll gladly pay for it.
Yeah.
You know, but if, like, the Photoshops and all this nonsense, $800 for some fucking picture thing, fuck that. I'm not paying $800 for something that I'm going to use, twice a year.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's beautiful and awesome and it costs $10, $20, $30, yeah, fuck yeah, I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
But this Google Reader thing has really opened my eyes to something I've been thinking about for a while now, and that is what if Google were to just suddenly go away? What if we found out that their accounting was bullshit like Enron, and they just folded and they turned off all their services overnight? Everybody would be so fucked, man, because we're so reliant on Google.
I wouldn't say everyone. I think most Mac users wouldn't be bothered by it. I think Linux users would be completely fucking screwed.
Why?
Because Linux users are hardcore tied into Google.
Well, Android users are, but not necessarily.
Okay, when you're on your phone and you're out somewhere, and someone says, "Oh, dude, here's my name and address," and you add it to your address folder in your phone.
Yeah.
How do you get that onto your computer?
Well, I don't. It's in Google.
Okay. Forget you. Most people. How do you get that onto your computer?
I don't know.
Is it being automatically synced? Are you plugging it in via USB? Are you using a Google service?
Well, Well, if you've got an Android phone and I get someone's contacts, then it's just synced up to my Google account.
Right. So using Google.
And then, yeah.
Right. So using Google.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem. And when I add a name and address to my phone, it's automatically synced to my computer. And I'm not using any Google service whatsoever.
Wirelessly, or do you have to plug it in every day?
No, just wirelessly. It's automatic. It's done through iCloud. It's immediate.
Yeah. And it's actually on your computer then?
Yeah. I can type it on my phone and then open my address book on my Mac, and it's right there instantly.
Yeah. I wonder if that... does it work offline?
What do you mean?
Well, like if you've not got a Wi-Fi connection and you looked on your computer, would it...
No, well, it'll go through the cellular then.
No, but what I mean is it actually sitting on your computer, or is it connecting to Apple servers and downloading the relevant information?
So what happens is I input the information into my address app on my phone, right?
Yeah.
And the minute I click done or save or whatever the button is, it then transmits that data to iCloud, which in turn then syncs it locally to my computer when I turn it on.
So if Apple pulled an Enron, which as unlikely as that is, and if they just switched off all their services, you would still have all your contacts on your computer then?
Locally, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right. So what it is, the iCloud is basically, it's like an intermediate. So it's stored on iCloud, but it's also stored locally. So if iCloud went away, I'd still have it locally. I just wouldn't be able to sync it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Whereas if you're storing everything on Google and not storing it locally also, if Google went away, then your stuff goes away too.
Well, it's like email. I have all my email web-based, and I don't use Thunderbird or anything like that.
Yeah. No, I download everything, so I'd still have everything. So I have it in both because everything is downloaded locally, plus I have it in the cloud. So if the cloud goes away, I still have all my stuff. Now, what we're talking about is highly unlikely that Google's going to go.
Yeah. But you never know.
No,
people would have said that of Enron.
Sure, absolutely. It's possible. It's just very unlikely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that most... Google is a very successful company. I mean, I use Google products, not to the extent that, say, a Linux Android user you would use it. I use Gmail and stuff like that. But I think, especially on the Linux side, the infestation of Google and its services is far greater than it would be, say, on the Mac or Windows side.
Why is that? What do you mean by that? Are you saying Linux as in Android, or are you saying Linux as in desktop Linux?
Both.
Why so in desktop Linux?
Because, okay, do you use the Google Docs, Google Search, Google Email, every Google product? I mean, because their product set is so good, and the applications available for Linux are so lacking, Google is a natural choice.
I don't know. I use LibreOffice and AbiWord to some extent for, albeit the limited amount of office work that I do. I wouldn't use Google Docs for that. The only reason I use Google Docs is for doing this show with you because it's more convenient.
Sure.
But my serious business stuff is all saved locally, and backed up locally and using LibreOffice.
Because the reason I'm thinking, because I was thinking like, well, if I switch to Android and I switch to Linux,
yeah,
I would have to use Google. There's no other game in town.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's fucked up.
Well, yeah, that's the thing specifically about Android. I mean, we're kind of meandering a bit here, but
I know.
But Android, like, you are definitely tied to Google. Although it is possible to install another email application and use a different service, you pretty much are tied into Google.
You're locked in completely. And when you think about it, I would say, I mean, not all, but most Linux users, if they have a cell phone, it's going to be running Android of some type.
I would have thought so.
Right.
I mean, based on going to OggCamp, where most people were Linux users.
And so if you're going to sync your mobile data with your PC at home, you're going to be using Google services, right? Because
I think that's fair.
So there's no other game in town. So what I'm saying is, Android/Linux users are so heavily tied into Google that in a strange way, it kind of negates the whole security issue that they boast about.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
You know?
Yeah, that is fair because of all this NSA boring business that keeps rattling on.
So in a way, it's like Linux is secure. There's no backdoors. Hang on, let me just check my Gmail.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not to say that you have to do that. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of Linux users who are not using Google services and are using other alternatives and running their own servers.
If they don't have a cell phone, then yeah, you're probably right. But if they have any kind of cell phone, they got Google up the fucking ass.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that later when we talk about Android.
Okay. All right, what we got next?
Okay, yeah. So up next then, government wiretaps were foiled by encryption for the first time in 2012. Law enforcement agencies like the FBI have long complained about what they call the going dark problem. The assertion that encrypted communications hamstring their efforts to catch criminals and terrorists. But US officials are only now reporting for the first time that encryption has managed to stop government wiretaps dead in their tracks. Of the 3,395 wiretaps authorized by the federal and state judges in 2012, investigators only failed to circumvent encryption in 4 of the 15 cases where they encountered it. The figures come from a new annual report to Congress, blah, 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 blah. Now, there's 2 very interesting things about that. And one is that of 4,000 wiretaps, only 15 people were using encryption.
Right. I'm surprised by that, actually. I thought it would be lower.
Yeah. But what's more interesting is that they, of the 15, they managed, only 4 of them, they didn't crack. So everyone else who's been using encryption, and this article says that between 2000 and 2011, they weren't. The government managed to break everybody's encryption that they were wiretapping, which, granted, isn't that many people.
Sure. Well, you see, it's not necessarily that they have to break the encryption. I mean, they just need to guess the password, right? So you could have the greatest encryption on the planet, but if your password is password, you're done.
Yeah, I mean, presumably that's the first thing they would try and do, just brute force it with dictionary lists and stuff.
Exactly. It all boils down to the password that you use to decrypt it. I mean, if you're using some ridiculously simple password, my dog's name or some shit, then they're going to knock that out in 2 seconds.
Yeah, which I suppose using Facebook and the like, they can probably work out what your password might be.
Exactly, because they can pull up a detailed profile about who you are, who your family members are, what you're into, what you like, what you don't like, blah, 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 and come up with some pretty damn good guesses as to what you might use your password.
That's true, actually, with various dates and people and places and stuff. Yeah, I would have thought a lot of people use those kind of things.
So in most cases, they're not breaking the encryption. They're just guessing the password. I mean, when they brute force an encrypted email or file or whatever, they're not brute forcing the actual encryption algorithm. They're just brute forcing the password.
Yeah. Yeah, they're obviously just trying all the things before they... Yeah, but when they actually get to the stage where they tried all the dictionary words, then it's a case of brute forcing it at using every combination of letters and numbers and stuff.
Right. Yeah, so it's not the encryption itself. It's just knocking out the password. Once you get the right password, then boom, you're done. You're in.
But it's still interesting that over those 11 years... in 109 cases between 2000 and 2011, the encryption had not been blocked. Encryption had not blocked government wiretaps even once.
Right. Now, if this is a legitimate story, and if these are legitimate figures, this really does kind of reinforce the need for people to really start encrypting their communication online.
Kind of the opposite, I would say. No. If this is true, then it kind of says there's no point. You're pissing in the wind because they're going to get it anyway.
Well, if it muddies the water. I mean, we've said this many times. If they want to read your stuff, they're going to read your stuff, whether you encrypt it or not. They're going to read it. But if everyone is encrypting it, it is in effect going dark. It muddies the waters so much that it's not impossible for them to read your stuff. It just makes it a chronic pain in the ass. It makes their job significantly harder.
Yeah, and if everyone was doing it, I mean, as they said in that, of the nearly 4,000 authorized wiretaps in 2012. And these are just the authorized ones that a judge has actually signed off on, not the NSA stuff. Only 15 people, or 15 of those cases, were using encryption. Whereas if all 4,000 of them had been using encryption, then you would have thought that their ability to see it would have been less. The success rate would have been a lot lower.
Exactly. Right. So, I mean, everyone should use encryption, not only to keep their stuff safe, but it really makes the spying so much harder. It makes their job very, very difficult. Something that before might have been child's play because everything was in plain text suddenly becomes a massive headache.
Yeah, but the old thing is, in the same way as you shouldn't use Gmail and you shouldn't use Google, it's just too easy. And it's too hard to use encryption all the time. Yeah,
it's a hassle. I mean, that's no question. It's the whole security versus convenience, right? Yeah. If people want to go with convenience. Running, downloading PGP keys and sending it. It's a big hassle. It's a big pain. Who wants to deal with that? But it's worth it in the long run. I mean, that's not to say you have to encrypt every single email you send, but you should encrypt stuff that. Like if I'm sending you an email and it contains information that I really only want you to read it, then I should encrypt it. If I send you an email that's like, well, who cares who reads this, Like, hey, you know what? The new Star Trek movie was great. I mean, do I really give a rat's ass if someone else reads that? No, I don't care. So I just send that plain text. Who cares? But if I'm sending you, hey, here's my bank account number, then that needs to be encrypted.
Yeah, I suppose. But the argument is you should just encrypt. If everyone encrypted everything all the time, then it would be, as I say, going dark.
Exactly. That would be the ultimate. That would be the best thing. But what's the likelihood of that happening? I mean, it's very, very unlikely. But that would be the perfect scenario.
Well, I do foresee it getting easier somehow. There's a lot of clever people out there, and I foresee that someone will find a way to implement GPG in a way that is very easy and cross-platform and that everyone can use all the time. So I don't know. I'm not clever enough to work out how to do that, but I do predict that someone will.
Well, the thing is that when you encrypt, you have to encrypt the data locally. It has to be done locally, and then when you transmit it, you transmit the encrypted text or file or whatever. You can't rely on a service like you send your text and they encrypt it for you, and then that cannot happen because you don't know how secure they are.
That defeats the object.
Exactly. Everything. If you're going to use encryption, you have to do it locally on your machine. And then the output encrypted file, that's the part that you send to somebody else or upload to the cloud or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. So what's the next one then?
All right, next up we got Plantier. That sounds familiar. Helping Californian license plate readers database. Throwing more light on the controversial use of police license plate readers, a new report from the Center of Investigative Reporting reveals that the development of a new California database under the development of the help of Plantier, a Silicon Valley firm whose data analysis technology is in wide use by the U.S. intelligence and defense communities. According to the report, the company is party to a $340,000 contract to build a new infrastructure. The project is being spearheaded by the Northern California Intelligence Research Center, an office set up after the 9/11 terror attacks to enable police and intelligence agencies to share data. The new database will collate records coming from 14 counties across the state and will be able to handle at least 100 million records and will be accessible to both local and state law enforcement, according to the report. It also notes that license plates records will be held by the new database for 2 years, regardless of the data retention policies of the local law enforcement agencies. So it looks like that the traffic stops, traffic lights, speed cameras, police cars, they're all going to have not only facial recognition, but license plate scanners. So when you drive past or you stop at a stoplight or you stop at a red light, you turn left, you turn right, it's automatically going to scan and record your license plate data. And obviously when they pull up the license plate data, they have, who you are, where you live, are you insured, blah, blah, blah. You always see it in the movies, when a cop sees a suspicious car, he grabs his microphone and says, "Hey, give me a license plate readout on, and then he reads the license plate, and 2 seconds later they come back, hey, that belongs to blah, blah, blah." Now they don't even need to do that. It'll automatically be cataloged and documented.
Well, this is already happening in the UK. One major place is in what you would call gas stations, petrol stations,
right,
where they say they do it to make sure that people don't drive off without paying. But every person who goes into the petrol station, their registration number, as we call it, license plate, is logged on a screen. And in my local one, there's a screen right there, and you can see all of the all of the registration numbers being logged, and they turn the picture with text recognition or number recognition, whatever, into actual text that they can read and log. And it also happens on the motorways as well, with cameras logging who's going where, and also with the congestion charge. I don't know if you know about the congestion zone.
No, what's that?
Well, it's a tax, basically. To drive into central London, there's a ring around the centre of London where if you drive into it, you have to pay a certain amount every day. I think it's £15 a day now for a car and more for lorries. And they automatically know that you've driven in there by this registration number, license plate recognition. And if you haven't paid, if you haven't paid for that day and they don't have a record of that, then you get a fine of however much.
Oh, God.
So this is really not a new thing. I mean, I put this story in here because it's not news, really. It might be news in California, but it certainly isn't in the UK and certainly in London.
Now, what they have over here also, they have like the speed cameras, right? Where if you're traveling at a certain speed, these cameras they have radar, so they can tell how fast you're going. And then they take a snapshot, so it'll flash, the light will flash, and it'll take a picture of your car, your license plate, and you behind the wheel, right?
Yeah, same, we have that here. So it takes 2 photos here because there's markings on the road a certain distance apart, and then they take the 2 photos at a specific time. And
then you get a bill in the mail saying, hey, you owe us X amount of dollars, and here's the picture to prove that it was you.
Yeah, and you get points as well here, and you get 3 points usually for speeding, and if you get 12 points, you get banned for a year or something.
But there's a really nice legal way to get around that over here, and they sell. There's 2 things you can do. You can either purchase a spray that you can spray onto your license plate, or you can purchase a cover, which is like a clear cover that clips over your license plate. Now, if you just look at the license plate in just regular day or night, it just looks like a regular license plate. Everything's perfectly readable and legible. So if a cop is following you or a cop sees your car and they want to read your license plate, they absolutely can. There's no obstructions whatsoever. But when you go through one of these speed traps, when the flash goes off to take the picture, there's a chemical in the cover or the spray you put on your license plate which reflects the light, so that the photograph, when in this device, when the photograph is looked at, they can see the car, they can see you behind the wheel, but the license plate is completely unreadable.
Yeah, I've heard of that in the UK as well, but it's very much illegal. And if they catch you with it, then you get banned from driving and fined and all that.
It's not illegal over here.
Ah, right. Interesting.
So you can fight back against these thieving pieces of shit.
Yeah, well, they put these speed traps places where they're supposedly to save lives because people, it's accident black spot or whatever. But the bottom line is it's to make money.
Of course.
They put them after hills and stuff where
Absolutely.
people
yeah.
Are going to be speeding a little bit. And if it's 30 miles an hour generally in urban areas in the UK, and you're allowed up to 33, interestingly. I just thought of that. And because of the 10% thing. Or if it's 40, 44, whatever. Yeah. But if you're going 33 and a bit or 34, then you get 3 points on a fine.
Yeah, it's fucking nonsense. It's crazy. See, the way I look at it is like if I'm speeding and, blue, cop comes behind me, pull over, I'm like, okay, that's fair. You got me. You busted me. I'm good with that. No problem. I'll pay the fine. You're right. I'm wrong. End of story. But if I'm speeding and some fucking camera gets me or some, with no people involved, that's bullshit.
Well, it's, I don't know. I was a pedestrian for a long time. I only started driving relatively recently. And so I was seeing it from the other side of the fence. Obviously, everyone in America, and especially around LA, everybody drives, don't they?
Pretty much, yeah.
Unless you live in New York where people walk and get the tube and stuff. Or in
New York, it's just the reverse. I mean, if you live in the city, then having a car is not a good idea. But in LA,
same in Central London.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
Many people who live in Central London and work in Central London, and there's no point in having a car.
Whereas LA is so spread out, you need a car to get around.
Yeah, but as someone who is a pedestrian and a public transport user for quite a long time, I can kind of see it. It's speeding arseholes who run people over and stuff deserve to be busted. And what's the difference between a cop following you or a camera catching you?
It's fair.
But why is it fair I don't understand that. If you're speeding, you're speeding, surely.
No, because there's no margin for error. Right,
or if it's like you have one speed limit for the whole country, whereas there might be a stretch of road where that's if you're going 35 and it's at night or whatever, there's not anyone around.
Exactly.
Then a cop would go, yeah, well, fair enough. I'm not going to bust him for that.
Exactly. If you're on an empty street, there's no cars anywhere to be seen, and you go over the speed limit, a cop might be like, yeah, oh, okay, well, there's nobody around, there's no danger. It's not worth my time. But the machine is like, you've broken the law, here's the bill.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just noticed, linked off that article, completely off topic here, that on July the 4th, MTV is going to celebrate Independence Day by actually playing music videos.
Wow. What a revelation. Who would have
they
thought?
stopped playing music videos.
Oh yeah, they haven't played it for I don't know, years, since the mid '90s, I guess. I would guess, not for a long time.
That's just completely irrelevant aside. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, should we take a break?
Yeah. Okay.
You can now hear all of the Mindset Central podcast while on the go with the Stitcher Smart Radio app. On-demand news, talk, and more on your mobile phone. The latest episodes at Mindset Central are always available for you. No syncing needed and no memory or storage wasted. Available on your iPhone, iPad, Android phones, and beyond. Downloading is easy. Go to Stitcher.com or check out your app store. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to MindsetCentral.com.
You're listening to the Mindset Network.
Paratalk, an intimate discussion on all things strange. This is a show where more questions are raised than answers are given, and things sometimes really do go bump in the night. Hosted by Reeves Cook and Gareth Davies. You can listen to Paratalk at MindsetCentral.com.
everyone. This is Gareth from MindsetCentral.com. Just coming on really quickly to talk to you about subscribing or donating to Mindset Central. Right now, we average about 17 brand new podcasts a month on Mindset Central, and that's for free. So you get that content for free. It always has been free, and it will continue to be free. But just take a moment to imagine the time and the effort it takes to put all that together, plus also creating, building, sustaining the website, and the server costs. We're constantly finding ourselves reaching the point that sometimes is the breaking point, and we're up against that old foe of time and money. And we're hoping that with your help, we can break through this wall. Not only do we want to continue with Mindset Central, but we want to build upon it and create something very special on the internet. So please think about helping us and becoming a subscriber. By becoming a subscriber to Mindset Central, you'll have access to the subscriber section, which provides exclusive, all-new podcasts and a lot more. The subscriber section has and will continue to grow into an area that you will want to be a part of. And with monthly access priced at that of a large coffee at Starbucks. So for one coffee, you get access to the subscriber section, packed with content that is continually added to on a weekly basis. So please help us. Help us by becoming a subscriber. Thank you. And we are back. All right, Joe. So let's talk a little bit about Android. Now, I've had a very limited experience with Android. Way back when, I think I might have mentioned on the show, my daughter's first phone was an Android phone. I remember playing around with that and absolutely despising it. But I'm assuming things have changed and things have gotten pretty cool. I mean, I fooled with a Note 2 a while ago at a store and looked at it, and it looked very, very nice. So let's talk a little bit about Android.
Okay, well, obviously it's a mobile OS, in the same as iOS is for iPhones and iPads and iPods, etc. And it's available on phones and tablets and other things like TVs, smart TVs, games consoles, and e-readers, and soon to be watches, if the rumors are to be believed.
So, wait a minute, Android's going to be showing up on a watch?
Yeah, smartwatches.
Man, they even copy a rumor.
Yeah, well, the rumors are that they're copying the rumor. So who knows?
They copy a rumor with a rumor.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's going to come out first, whether it'll be the iWatch or the Android watches. So yeah, announced in 2007 and then released a year later. Well, it's a little bit over a year and a half later, running on the T-Mobile G1. Which is actually, I've never seen one in the flesh, but the pictures that I've seen of it look quite nice. It had a slide-out QWERTY keyboard.
No, it was horrible. I remember when it came out, a guy at work with me had one, and it was flimsy. It was very toy-like. Nothing worked right. It was a piece of garbage. But I remember looking at it thinking, first release is shit, but it has potential. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much the case, because it's come a long way since then. It has a Linux kernel in it, but it's not the same as desktop Linux, because it's not GNU/Linux, which GNU/Linux, which Stallman always goes on about. So although it has an a Linux kernel, it's not really Linux as we know it.
Yeah, it's not. Now, Stallman doesn't even own a phone, right? And he would never own a phone simply because that there's no phones available that are not tracking devices that you can make phone calls from.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's an article which we can link to. Now, although it's open source, Android, Stallman wrote an article for The Guardian, actually, And he writes about how, although the core of it is open source, to make it actually work on phones, most of the firmware and the drivers to talk to the actual hardware of the phone are proprietary blobs, binary blobs, as they say, which means that it's not really, you've got no idea what's happening. And so backdoors in phones could be really, could be put into that firmware if the manufacturers wanted to, or if the NSA paid them to, or whatever. So it's marketed as this open source product, but you really don't know necessarily whether that's true or not. It isn't really. It's kind of a myth that it's open source, even though the core of it is open source. Most of what makes it run isn't.
So it is pretty much a proprietary phone then, just like the iPhone. I mean, I know that most Linux people, if they have a mobile phone, it's going to be Android. But it's anything but open source or free software.
Well, the core of it is, and you have things like CyanogenMod and stuff that take this core of the open source, core of the operating system, which is open source, but it's just making it work with the drivers that it uses are not open source, generally speaking.
So would it be that, I mean, maybe this is a little off topic, but I want to throw it out there anyway. I mean, we know that Ubuntu is coming out with a phone operating system, and so is Firefox. Do you think those might be a ray of hope as far as being true open source and free software?
Less so with Ubuntu, more so with Firefox, but only until we actually get a phone released, rather than just announced, we won't know. If it's going to be truly open hardware as well as open source software, then that would be the ideal. But I don't think that you're ever going to get purely open hardware with a phone because of the radio in it.
Well, it's got to work with a carrier, and carriers are not big fans of, of free anything, let alone software.
Yeah, and the GSM stuff, I don't think is going to be. I don't think that will be open source. So I live in hope, but I don't. I'm not that. I don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
Basically, and most of all of the Google applications or apps that come on an Android phone are proprietary as well. For example, Maps, Gmail, Drive,
right,
all that kind of stuff are proprietary. And also Honeycomb, which was version 3 of Android, which they brought out on the Motorola Zoom, and then subsequently other tablets, was never open sourced. They said, oh, well, the source is buggy and you don't really want to do it. And the rumors are that it was because it was just not very good. It wasn't very well written, basically. It was sort of cobbled together. And it was only when they released the source code for version 4 that in the tree of it, of the source code, people finally saw the source code for 3. So that isn't really in the spirit of the open source world. I mean, without getting too technical about the open sourceness of it, the Linux kernel is GPL v2, which is proper free software, whereas the rest of it is Apache, which, although it's free software, it means that you can release it as proprietary because it's a more permissive license. So it's that Apache license that makes it possible for them to release it with all this proprietary stuff in it as well. You see. So
let me just ask you quickly about Android. So when you purchase an Android phone, whether it be HTC, whatever, Nexus, Samsung Galaxy, whatever the case may be, when you purchase this phone, it's running Android, but a massively altered version of Android, correct? Just specific to whoever's making the phone.
Yeah, exactly. So say a Samsung phone through Orange or T-Mobile or whatever they've taken Android, and first Samsung have fucked with it and added their own shit to it, and then Orange or T-Mobile will then add their own shit to it. And that the Apache license allows them to do that and release it like that. So they can add their own proprietary bits in it, like the interface TouchWiz on a Samsung or HTC has Sense.
Yeah, they all have their own kind of look and feel, right?
Yeah. Well, not all of them, but most of them, unless you get a Nexus phone, like I did, where that is genuine, just the Android skin. And one thing that's interesting about it is that it runs on a Dalvik virtual machine. I think that's how you say it, which is sort of a Java. It's similar. It's complicated and a bit boring, but it's like a Java virtual machine, which is a bit of a sandy foundation to build your operating system on.
Well, especially really. Java. I mean, Java is major issues as far as being insecure, unstable, viruses. Java's not a good platform for anything, really.
I'm not sure about the security implications of it. It's more from a stability point of view and a speed point of view. Because it's running virtualized, you're not running it on bare metal, as they say, as I said earlier. So you're not getting the true performance out of the phone. There is because you've got that layer in between, you're not getting the most out of the phone that you could have. So for me, that's a major problem. When I found out about that, it sort of answered a lot of my questions as to why it's a little bit ropey sometimes.
Now, there's a lot of users out there that desperately want or are leaning towards pure Android, pure Google Android. Now, so much so that HTC and Samsung are releasing, I think this month in July, they're releasing the Galaxy 4 and the new HTC without their own proprietary software. I mean, it'll still be their hardware, but it's going to be running pure vanilla Android.
Well, except that I'd read an article today that said that it's not going to be 100% pure Android, in that it's not going to have the updates, which we'll get to later. But they're not going to be 100% Nexus devices. There is going to be, although the skin is going to be pure Android skin, it's going to differ from, say, my Nexus 4, in that there is going to be a few bits of Samsung and HTC code in there as well. So even though supposedly pure Android phones won't be 100%.
Can you do that, though? Like if I went out and bought like a Note 2, I bought a Samsung Note 2, and I brought it home, and I was like, you know what? I'm done with all this Samsung bullshit. I want pure Android on this. Can I do that?
Well, I'd have to check for that particular phone. There's a project called Cyanogen Mod, which takes the Android source code and makes its own distribution. And they have officially supported phones and then phones that are not supported. And if you have an officially supported phone, then generally speaking, it'll work quite well if you put that on there. I'm not sure about the Note 2 specifically, whether that is supported or not.
Well, just whatever. Not any other, like HTC or any other brand. Would I be able to just wipe it and start fresh with clean, vanilla, authentic Google Android?
Well, yes, you can put custom ROMs on it, but it's a case of finding one that I don't think. CyanogenMod is the closest to pure Android that you're going to get, but they've enhanced it in their own way, supposedly. I haven't used it recently, CyanogenMod, the recent versions of it, so I'm not sure how it differs, but I know that it's not coming straight from Google, put it that way. And so unless you have the technical skills to take the source code, add the drivers, compile it all, then I don't think that's going to happen. Because to compile a Android ROM, I believe, needs either 16 or 32 gigs of RAM to do that. It takes a hell of a beast of a machine to compile the code, the image together. Yeah.
So let's talk the good and the bad. So what's some of the real positive things about owning an Android device as opposed to owning an iOS device or a Windows phone?
Well, I'm not sure about Windows Phone. I don't think anyone cares about that. But relative to an iOS device like an iPhone or an iPad, it's a relatively open platform in terms of the software that you can install on it. now there's on iOS you have the App Store, and on Android you have the Play Store, Google Play, and by default that's the only way you can install applications or any software at all on an Android phone.
Really? I didn't know that. I thought that was just an option. You could use the Google Store, or you could go elsewhere.
Well, by default, that is the only way you can do it. Because if you try and install anything else, it says, "Hang on, no, you're not supposed to do this." And I think at that point it says, "Do you want to go and change your options?" In which case, you go into a couple of menus, tick a box or untick a box. I can't remember. And I think you tick use unknown sources or something. Tick a box, and then you can install anything you want on it. You can make your own application. You can download it from anywhere you want. And so that is the major difference, because you don't have this idea of jailbreaking and having to fuck with your phone in a major way. It's just literally menu, tick that box. Okay, now I'm fine. I can install anything I want on it.
Well, that's pretty good. At least they give you that option. They give you the choice to go in there and decide what you want to do. You don't have that on the iPhone. The only way you can kind of bypass the App Store is to jailbreak the phone. Then you can download other things. But that's a good feature.
Yeah, I mean, that's a major positive, because jailbreaking, totally. Although possible, I've never done it, but I understand that it's not trivial. It's a bit of a fuck about, and it's not something that is just a 1 second job, like with like unticking this box, ticking the box.
Because it is kind of a kind of plus and minus. It is a kind of because only having the one source for all your applications is far more secure. Whereas if you're open to anything, while, yeah, you are free to do whatever you want to do with your phone, but that also opens up the risk of your phone getting infected with malware, viruses, and so on and so forth. Whereas if you're dealing purely with an authorized source, that's not going to happen.
Well, that's why I think that that Android gets it exactly right, in that by default you can only use that one authorized source. But if you want to, it's very easy to turn that off. And
so it's basically saying, you know what, if you want to stay safe and secure, you leave that alone. But if you want to open up and head to the Wild West, you can do that. But if anything happens, that's down to you.
Yeah, I think when you untick it, a warning comes up saying, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Which I think they've got that just right, in that. But you have to go into menus. You have to want to do it. You couldn't accidentally do it. So it keeps the people who are just technophobes and don't know anything about that, it keeps them on the straight and narrow. But anyone who wants to take control of their device can do so relatively easily. Another good thing is, as I touched on, CyanogenMod and various other community ROMs are available, at least for some phones, because it's an open source or mostly open source platform. But to do that, you need to unlock the bootloader. Do you
run CyanogenMod on yours, or are you just pure vanilla Android?
Well, currently it's Android with my own skin that I put on it, which is similar to Android. But no, I'm not running CyanogenMod on this. I did on my last phone, but not yet on this. Maybe when I get bored and want to mess about with it, I will. But you need to unlock the bootloader and then copy the new ROM onto it. Now, some phones like mine, to unlock the bootloader is easy. You just, I say easy. You have to type some commands into the terminal, and then it does it. You are supposed to be able to do that, basically. Whereas other phones, you have to root it first. Using exploits in it, you have to gain root access, which is like sudo in Ubuntu or superuser in Linux. You have to gain access to that root account to be able to unlock the bootloader.
So basically, some phones make rooting the phone trivial, while others make it very involved.
Yes. Yeah, and that's something, if you're interested in tinkering, it's something to look out for.
So when you're purchasing the phone, if that's something you want to do, you want to make sure the phone you purchase makes it easy. I think if I remember correctly, I think I saw somewhere that HTC makes it pretty simple to root your phone. Whereas something like Samsung, there's a few more fences to climb and things to jump through, hoops to jump through. But it is doable on either phone. It's just one is more straightforward than the other.
Well, it's not so much about rooting, more about the bootloader and whether that is unlockable or not. Because rooting is generally part of... You don't necessarily need to root the phone to flash a custom ROM on it. If the... root it in the sense of having to find exploits and jump through hoops to gain the root access to then unlock the bootloader. But to answer your question... HTC has been hit and miss. They used to be very easy to unlock the bootloader. I think the Desire was easy and you could do that. But then some later phones have been not so easy at all. And Samsung, I'm not sure about. I think that some of them, I think, again, it varies by model. So it's not even, you can't just say, oh, well, Samsung phones are good or bad. You have to go with the particular model that you're interested in, find out, does it have an unlockable bootloader?
Well, that's something else that's kind of a negative, too. Well, no, it's a negative and a positive, is the choice. There's so many phones with so many different pluses and minuses and this and that. Is fragmentation a huge issue for Android phones? I would suspect that it is. What do you think?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, the huge choice of hardware is a plus and a minus, as you say, because you can go from tiny little phones to huge phablets, as they call them, 6 and 7 inch phones and tablets of all sizes. Whereas with iOS, with Apple devices, you've got one iPhone and 2 iPads. That's it.
Right, and they're all running the same operating system. There's no like different flavors or different skins or whatever. They're all running the same thing. So if you know how to use your phone and someone presents you with an iPad, then there's no learning curve. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, but as for fragmentation, it's a huge problem, especially for developers, because you've got all these different screen sizes, all these different versions of Android as well. Like my girlfriend's phone, which was my old phone, is running Android 1.6, which is like a really, really ancient version of it. And there's some people stuck on that. There's a lot of people on some people on 2.2, some on 2.3, some on 4.2. There's loads of different versions of it.
Yeah, my daughter's phone was 2.2, and it was horrible. And I'd always go and check to see if I could update it, but it would never, ever get updated, ever. And even though, in general, Android was being updated constantly by Google, the phone that she had, the company I think it was an LG. They never offered an update for it ever.
Yeah, well, that is the major problem with it. Really, is that, as I was saying before about how you have the manufacturer takes, say, Samsung takes Android, puts their own proprietary shit in it, and then give it to a carrier or network, as we would say, Orange or T-Mobile or Verizon, whatever. They put their shit in it. And so you've got two separate parties, two separate interested parties that the code has to go through before it's released as an update. And as a result of that, a lot of phones don't get any updates at all, even security updates they don't get. So it's released with version 2.2 like your daughter's phone was.
And you're stuck. That's it. Unless you root it and do all that stuff to get it.
Yeah, unless you do it yourself. But there's no official updates. There's no few and far between. Unless you get a Nexus phone. But even then, the updates, they do abandon phones before they're broken.
Yeah.
Because the idea of a phone is that you have it for about 2 years maximum. But the bottom line is phones do last a lot longer than that if you want them to.
Absolutely.
If you're careful with it and don't drop it and stuff.
Also, I found that a lot of Android phones are very gimmicky. They offer like a gimmicky feature, which is kind of shit. My daughter's phone was a 3D phone, so it had it had 2 cameras on the back and some specialized software, so you could take 3D pictures with it. That was its kind of selling point, and it was kind of crap. And I know that on the new Galaxy 4 right now, you can wave your hand in front of it and move the screen. And I mean, for some people that might be attractive, but for me, it's just fucking shit.
Yeah, pretty much. It's as you say, there are gimmicky phones, but that's part of the plus for it, really, that you've got this massive range of hardware from cheap pieces of shit to really awesome quad-core beasts, and prices to reflect that as well.
Right.
You can get an Android tablet for 50 quid. Now, if you're only going to use it a little bit, or you've got a young kid who wants to watch a couple of videos or play some really basic games on it, then that makes more sense than paying hundreds of quid for an iPad.
Right.
Whereas if you want a really high-spec tablet like the Nexus 10, then you've got a really great tablet, and it's inevitably having such a wide range is going to mean you've got gimmicky shit phones, but it also means you've got good phones competing with each other as well.
And that's true, because you're not locked in. If there's something about a phone that doesn't float your boat, so to speak, then there's a lot more choice till you hone it down and find what you're looking for.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can jump around and shop around until you get what ultimately you want. But chances are what you want is not going to be waving your fucking hand or taking a 3D picture, right? Unless you're like a fucking retard or some shit.
Yeah, you never know. Controlling it with your eyes as well in the S4.
So stupid. Stupid. Yeah. But hey, what are you going to do? I mean, hopefully that... Because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good features in the S4. There's a lot of good stuff about it, but it's overshadowed by these naff, stupid nonsense that they plug in there, which hopefully that if somebody purchases it, they can go in and turn that bullshit off.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've not played with an S4 yet, so I'm not 100% on that. One interesting thing about Android is that some people, the Android x86 project, have ported it to x86 processors.
Really?
Yes, and by that, obviously, that means more standard Intel and AMD laptop and desktop processors. So
you could essentially run a version of Android on your PC then?
Yes, and in fact, what did I get this week but a touchscreen laptop? So I tried it out, and it works really well.
So you installed Android on your laptop?
I didn't install it. I just booted it off a USB stick, but there is an option to install it to the hard drive, and it works really well. It's like having an Android tablet with a keyboard and mouse. And yeah, it was working fine.
That's awesome.
And installing apps was so quick compared to even my quad-core phone.
Now, what kind of apps could you put on it, though? Just like regular phone apps, and it would work?
Well, yeah. Some of them weren't available because the app hasn't been ported to x86.
I see.
So it is a limited number of apps that you can get for it.
That's pretty cool, though.
But there are official x86 phones and tablets using new Atom processors, like the Motorola Razr I, for example.
So theoretically, those applications you could run on your laptop or desktop. That's interesting. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what swayed me towards the touchscreen laptop, because the future of who knows what the future is going to bring, and I'm hoping to have this laptop working for at least 5-6 years.
The future of touch on laptops and desktops it ain't going to happen. The future of touch is on tablets and phones and things of that nature. No one is going to sit at a desk and use a laptop or a desktop exclusively with touch, because it gets old in 3 seconds.
Yeah, but that said, though, when I installed Ubuntu and Linux Mint and loads of different 64-bit this, 32-bit, and I was using it a lot over the last few days. And granted, you're not going to use it exclusively touchscreen, but touchscreen does speed up your workflow in certain things. You're using the mouse for the fine things, but when you've got big buttons, it's just click, click, click on the touch on the screen.
The only time touch is good on I saw I think it was an HP iMac clone.
Oh yeah.
Where they totally ripped off the aesthetic look of the iMac, but what they did which was kind of different, was you could actually grab the screen, and it had like a swivel arm on the back where you could pull it down so it would be kind of flat on your desk. And at that point, touch becomes interesting because, you can move things around, like, was it the Minority Report kind of deal? Because the screen will actually fold down to the desk, it becomes interesting. But even though that is interesting and it's kind of cool, how often would you use that? I think that you would use it, out of 100%, you'd use it like maybe 2 to 3% of the time.
Yeah.
The other,
time will tell.
The other 98% of the time is you're going to be using your keyboard and your mouse.
Yeah. But so far, I've found with that, although it's not even for me, it's for my girlfriend, it's her laptop really, I have found that the touchscreen is useful. And now going back to my laptop, sometimes I wish I had the touchscreen just for the odd little thing. And I think that it is a useful addition to
But when you install, and I know it's a Windows 8 laptop, and Windows 8 is built for touch, but when you install like Ubuntu on it, can you still touch the screen and move things around?
Yeah. I mean, not obviously. You have to in Firefox there's a plugin if you want to be able to scroll around with the touch.
Didn't know. But
yeah, it's just like clicking your mouse.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wherever you touch the screen, it's like doing a left click with your mouse.
Ah, right. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was just purely software driven from Windows 8. But I guess the screen is active regardless what operating system you put on there.
Well, if you've got the right drivers, in older versions of Ubuntu and other Linux distros, the touchscreen doesn't work. But once you get beyond a certain kernel number where they included the drivers for it, it works perfectly.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. That's good to know, yeah.
Yeah, and in Android, the touchscreen works perfectly as well. You can swipe around, and it's great. But there's the elephant in the room, as I call it, for Android. And I've touched on this previously, and I cannot be the only person who's noticed this, but every single Android device that I've had from how many phones? Like 4 phones, a tablet, and all of them have slowed down over time in that same way that Windows does, although maybe not to that same extent as Windows.
That's not good news.
That is not good news. And a lot of people might deny it, but that's why I say it's the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
No one wants to admit. Microsoft will openly admit that their operating system slows down, and we've covered that before.
Yeah.
When we did our reinstalling Windows.
Well, we've touched on this many times. We've talked, Linux, this is not an issue. Mac OS X, this is not an issue. Windows, this is a huge fucking issue.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. Android, it's not a huge issue, but it is an issue. In my experience, and I've tried various ROMs, various devices.
I don't know why that is. It's so because iOS does not have that problem. iOS is as fast from the day you buy it to 2 years later. It's going to be just the same.
So the day you drop it in a puddle.
Right. But I don't know why that would be on Android.
I'm not sure. I was speaking to a fella on the train when I was really drunk the other night. He had a Nexus 7 and a Nexus S phone. Just randomly. And he reckons that it's something to do with the SSD filling up. But you see, I'm not having that because you don't have that problem on iOS, do you? If you fill up your phone with all pictures and music and everything, then it doesn't slow down, does it?
No, there's no speed decrease whatsoever. I mean, it'll stop you from installing something. If your space is full and you want to install something, it'll say, hey, you ran out of space, delete some stuff. But it doesn't affect speed at all.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an old myth, isn't it? With people say, "Oh, my computer's running slow. I better delete some pictures." and unless with mechanical hard drives, when it really fills up, it does slow down. But with SSDs, it shouldn't do. And unless it's 100% full, maybe it's going to start giving you problems. But I don't know. I'm not technical enough to understand how the operating system works, and it just seems to me that it could be something to do with that virtual machine, perhaps.
Well, see, I was completely unaware until you mentioned this. I always assumed that phones were phones, and because I've never experienced a slowdown on my iPhone, I assumed that it was exactly the same in Android. It's a Unix-based kernel, so it's going to run just as well as my phone. I had no clue that it slowed down until you mentioned it. I assumed that it was just that's just the way phones are.
Well, that's what I thought. And I just thought, it's because these phones are a bit old. And it was only when I got my Nexus 4 that it dawned on me that, this is definitely something that has happened with all of my other phones. I was trying to deny it somehow.
Weird.
And trying to find other reasons. But the bottom line is Android does slow down a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying to the point that Windows does.
Right. But it is an issue that I don't know. I don't know why that would be a difference. I mean, the iPhone is based on OS X, which is based on BSD. Android is based on Linux, right? They're both Unix operating systems. Unix is blessed that it doesn't slow down over time. So all I can assume is that it has to do with the way the carriers are planting their crap on top of the Virgin Android. But
no, because even with the Nexus 4,
that's purely just an assumption, though. I don't know anything, you know.
Well, who knows? But I'm going to try and find out more about that as time goes on, and we'll hopefully get back to it at some stage.
Yeah, but to wrap it up as far as Android, I'm definitely curious about the platform. I don't know whether I would switch. I never say never, but I'm definitely curious about it. I do love my iPhone. It works like a charm, but I also like freedom, so I don't know. All right, then. So let's wrap up this week's show. Good topic there. Good conversation. I don't think we had much feedback this week. Did we get any feedback?
Well, a bit of chatter, and I've had some emails and stuff, but nothing of huge note. A bit of controversy over Windows 8.1 and and with the Mac love / hate and all that.
Sure.
But that all gone in the Facebook group anyway.
Yeah, totally. So if you do want to comment, you can comment directly on mindsetcentral.com on the right underneath this show. You can go ahead and hit add a comment that way. You can email us directly at mindsetcentral@gmail.com, or you can shoot over to our slowly growing Google Plus page, or you can go over to our very popular, very loud, and very active Mindset page on Facebook. Links are in the show notes. Well, Joe, that kind of wraps it up for this week's episode 16 of the Mind Tech Podcast. We'll be back next week with more news, more conversation, and more topics. But until then, farewell, good brothers.
See you later.